and welcome to a special edition of the History Detector. Today, if you were standing where I'm standing just over a century ago, you might have seen a man walk past you, stooping over, leaning on a stick, supporting his leg on the right-hand side, which along with his hand was unfortunately racked with arthritis. He was enjoying a quiet day in the countryside, out for a walk, escaping the hustle and bustle of life that was the military camp at Bramshot, where he was stationed as a Canadian soldier in the 50th Infantry Battalion. Today I would like to take you on a journey and explore the life that was Lt Alexander Dunlop Ritchie. So join me now as we explore his life. Alexander Dunlop Ritchie was born in 1884 in Dollar in Clackmanshire in Scotland. By 1891 he was living with his father and his father's wife, Margaret MacGregor. The listed sons of the household are Alexander, born that year, Angus, their daughter, Jane, and a son of the head of the household, Alexander Mayer, aged 14, born in Dollar. This would make his year of birth 1877. Confusion around his date of birth was to follow him for the rest of his life. Between 1903 and 1909, there were several charges of fraud brought against him, and during this time he was actually enlisted in the Royal Marines, which he served through until 1905, when his services were no longer required. In the Royal Marines artillery records, he gives his date of birth as the 17th of December 1884, and this is a discrepancy from the previous date of birth of 1877, so he seems to be very liberal about his date of birth. On 1911 census, he was living in Canada, and he was in Ontario, and on the 3rd of July of that year, he married one Christina May Turner. He gives his father's name as Alexander Ritchie and his mother as Mary Dunlop, and his age is 27, which makes his date of birth 1884. When Margaret MacGregor married Alexander Ritchie in 1886, she listed a sister, Mary, who records show married James Dunlop in 1895. So taking the information from both the 1891 census and the 1911 marriage certificate, his father was Alexander Ritchie and his mother was his father's sister-in-law. This makes him illegitimate. By 1915 he was in England. On the 11th of November he arrived in England, and on the 26th of November 1916 he was in Bramshot getting ready to be shipped to the front lines. And from late 1916 until early 1917 he served on the front lines. By the 25th of May 1917, a medical board stated him unfit for any service at all due to gastritis, myalgia and mild arthritis, which he was to suffer from until 1919 when he was finally medically discharged. Arriving back in Bramshot in 1917, go to the military hospital, he was listed on his admission slip as being 5'11.5" in height, 150 pounds in weight, with black hair, blue eyes. He had a heart and clasped hands tattoo on his left forearm, and he was already suffering from severe arthritis in his hands, as you can see from the photo. His right hand is very severely arthritic. His right leg also was suffering very badly by this time. But sometime around this point, he would have gone for the walk from Bramshot, which is only just up the road from where I found the tag, and that sometime during his walk, the tag fell from his body and landed in the field. There it was to remain until I was to find it shortly 105 years later. The final mention of him that I could find was from 1952, and it was actually his obituary, and I shall read that to you now. Chatsworth funeral service for Lt Alexander Dunlop Ritchie, a former resident of Chatsworth, was held from the McDougall and Brown Funeral Parlour, 646 Street, Clare Avenue, West Toronto. Lieutenant Ritchie was born on 17th December 1880 in Edinburgh, Scotland. He was a graduate of the Dollar Academy of Dollar, Scotland. He enlisted in the army and took part in the South Africa War while still in his early teens. He fought throughout the war under General Roberts and General Kitchener. He also took part in the Boxer Rebellion in China and was an honorary member of the Empire Veterans of South Africa. In 1914, he enlisted with the 50th Battalion, Calgary, Alberta, and was made a sergeant, and later received his commission as lieutenant on the field. He was acting captain when wounded. He fought in the Battle of Ypres, Somme, and Mons. Treated in various military hospitals in England, he was invalided home to Alberta, where he was given special treatment, then moved to the military hospital at Kingston and the base hospital at Toronto. Surviving are his widow, the former Miss May Turner of Chatsworth, a brother Angus Ritchie of Dollar, Scotland, and his sister Mrs. Angus Wilson. One brother was killed in the First World War. So unfortunately, it doesn't mention any siblings or children that would have surviving siblings. So I have to take it as granted that he had no children. So it looks like we won't be able to unite any of his children with the tag that belonged to Lieutenant Alexander Ritchie. I've enjoyed very much exploring the life of this man, and through photos and documents, I feel I've been brought closer to him. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing what I do and looking up the history of the items that we find. You never know what stories it's going to unleash and what paths it's going to take you down. Thank you for joining me, and I hope very much you've enjoyed this. If you have, don't forget to subscribe and join me next time, as we'll be back out in the field again looking for more items with a little bit of history that we can share with you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.